All right, a Crytek-shaped phoenix from the ashes. Homefront has returned. It is here in E3. What we seeing at E3? What you guys showing on behind closed doors and on the show floor?
So we're showing our E3 demo, which is a demo based around guerrilla warfare, which is one of the pillars of our game. It's what the game is about, and that's what we're showing behind closed doors, and you guys will hopefully enjoy that. Yeah.
Now, the history of this has been the Homefront series was originally done by Chaos Studios, and then they left, they exited, you entered, THQ crumbled, but you guys got the IP, full thing, brought it with you, and this is Deep Silver's publishing. Now, we just to sort of touch base with what Chaos Studios had talked about doing for a sequel. I mean, when you guys came on board, was it a complete clean slate? You guys could do what you want? Was there certain templates that you wanted to respect? How did the whole process work?
Yeah, so obviously we were really excited when THQ came to us to work on the sequel for Homefront. We worked with them for about a year, but during that process it was still a very level-to-level first-person shooter where you would play through one mission, then you go into the next level, so on and so forth. Very similar to what the first Homefront was. Obviously, when the whole THQ thing happened, we were really concerned that we were going to lose all of that work that we put into this. But Crytek went in, got the IP for ourselves, and that was great because that gave us the freedom to try and push out a bit more. So what we decided to do was we decided to focus on that guerrilla warfare aspect of things, but we wanted to push it into a free roaming world because that is kind of the DNA of what Crytek does in first-person shooters. With games like Crysis and Far Cry, these are games where we allowed the player to explore a big space. We gave them an objective, yes, but they could approach it however they wanted to, and that's something we wanted to bring into this Homefront. So for us, that was very important. Apart from that, it was the premise mainly from the first Homefront that got us all really excited because it's very different. It allowed us to approach gameplay from a very different way as well. But the most exciting thing about it was it flipped what you usually see in first-person shooters right on its head. All of a sudden, you weren't the guy with the big guns and the pocket full of grenades and all the best equipment. You had to go out and find this stuff and scavenge, and that was something that we really wanted to focus on because being a guerrilla fighter, being in a resistance, it's something that is very different to being a military soldier. This is just bare-boned survival and trying the best that you can to take the enemy on and use the environment around you. So scavenging, utilize the world around you, building your own weapons, this was all key to what you're going to find in Homefront: The Revolution.
I mean, it's an interesting premise, and certainly the inception of it on screen is very much like, if I get this right, so it's not necessarily open world, it's more like multi-areaed representation of the city, so you'll explore a section and you'll try and take it back from the army.
Yeah, so Philadelphia is a very vast, expansive space that we've created. It's been broken down into different zones. Fictionally, it's basically the KPA who are occupying the city. They don't have enough manpower to police the whole city, so they've set up these ghettos, which is what you probably saw in the demo. And these ghettos are basically where they can push the population into by offering incentives like food rations and things like that. And they can keep an eye on these guys, and if anyone steps out of line, they can deal with the problem right there and then. We've got several of these ghettos set up throughout Philadelphia, each with its own unique style, its own personality. Apart from the yellow zones, we've got red zones, which are, you probably would have seen those towards the end of the demo. That's an expansive, barren, bombed out wasteland, which is kind of like where the row houses are. These are like the suburbs of the city. This is like the badlands basically. So it's a vast space that as well. It's very different to what the yellow zones are. And then finally you have the green zones. This is basically where you'll find most of the iconics, the landmarks of Philadelphia, and this is where the KPF set up their headquarters, their residences, their offices. It's the opulent part of town. This is where the wealthy KPA officials are living. So these are all different and completely unique areas within Philadelphia. So as the player starts off the game, they'll have a small section of the city available to them, but as they play through, they'll unlock more and more and more of these zones, and as they play through the game, they can jump back and forth between these and take on whatever content they want to. There's no restriction on where they can go, what they want to do, so it's completely up to them.
And we saw during the demo presentation, there is gunplay, there is pulling triggers, but it is just one part of a much bigger sort of like thing. And the idea is you can go without guns and basically sort of like mix in with the civilian population. I'm just wondering, for that's you're setting up stealth attacks on stations and such like that, but what you mentioned with the green zones, does the gameplay then change? Because if that's heavily occupied KPA territory, then are civilians or I'm assuming workers allowed into those areas?
Yeah, so the green zones are mainly where most of the story stuff takes place. There's no restriction on what the player can do in these spaces. We again, like I mentioned, the sandbox principle is there throughout the game in every mission that is available to the player. So we just want to make sure that the player has options to approach every scenario in a different way. We want to give them as many options as possible. But the interesting thing is, because of our engine, the Cry engine, it's very, very powerful, and a lot of cool things going on under the hood. So one of the main things that allows us to create these unique scenarios is we don't actually have control over what's happening minute to minute on the street. The civilian population will do whatever they're doing. That's a living, breathing world. We have no control over what is actually unfolding as that mission is taking place. So that's an interesting dynamic because it can change an experience for a player. So your experience of a mission could be completely different to my experience of a mission. For instance, what you saw in the demo was just one way of that mission being completed. There were several factors that could have unfolded otherwise. You may have noticed that there was an explosion that went off just before you went into that police station. That kind of drew the KPA away. There could have been a skirmish that kicks off, because skirmishes is something that you will see in Homefront: The Revolution, where there's a resistance side and a KPA and they're just having a gunfight. It just unfolds in front of you, and we don't know when it will happen. It can just happen anywhere. If that had happened in that scenario, maybe the KPA at your target location get drawn into that combat, and you could have just snuck through without being detected. Maybe more KPA would have shown up as reinforcement. So these are all things that are emergent. These are all things that we have no control over, and these are all things that add a unique experience for everyone who plays it. So it's really exciting, and it adds a new level of unique, challenging gameplay.
But within that, I mean, you can solo it, but you can also co-op. So there's 4-player co-op. Now, just to clarify, is it a single-player campaign and there's a co-op campaign, or are they all one? Because I was talking to you guys at the pre-E3 reveal, and as far as I understood it, they use similar mission structures, but they were separate. How does this work?
So we've got a single-player campaign, and then we've got a co-op mode. Now, the co-op mode is the exact same city. The scale is the same. Everything is available to you. It's just that you can share that space with your friends. So it's 4-player co-op, and everything in the city you can all play together. There's going to be missions, there's going to be all sorts of structures, cool guerrilla things to do. But you can also go apart and experience the city separately. But the thing is, like I mentioned, it's a living, breathing city. Everything you do will influence someone else's game. So for instance, if one of your friends fires off an explosive device 2 blocks down the road and you're doing a mission somewhere else, maybe that would distract some of the guards in your area. And so it all connects. It's a living, breathing world, and you're just dropped in it and trying to be a resistance fighter. So yeah.
Thank you very much indeed for the time. Have a good E3.
Thank you very much. You too.